He understood that we whites are here for a purpose. That tradition points to the fact that the natives were once better than they are. They've deteriorated in their moral worth, and if they're not taken in hand, they'll be worse than ever. Well, this black tracker, despite his natural-born ignorance, he figured I was the man for the job, and he may well be right. You could not serve Almighty God any better than by improving these poor, degraded creatures. I've seen that the blacks can be made tractable and docile, but that you have to be both firm and kind with them. And you can teach them to work for their own interests. You can impress upon their minds that they mustn't kill each other. They must not kill the squatters' cattle. They must do unto others as they would wish themselves to be done by. And they must speak the truth. Now, if I were given the resources, then I would establish a chain of ration depots. I'd collect the blacks. I would feed and clothe the old and infirm and some of the others at times. I would raise their condition, all of their condition, by diplomacy and kindness. It's a dream I have. Now, my check is still alive. Getting pretty old now, but it's doing well. I see him from time to time when I'm in town. Yeah, I helped him get a little cottage on the outskirts, and he lives there quietly with his gin. Now, I taught him the white way, and he's a happy man. Sitting on his porch, he says, "Hey, boss, how's it going? When are you going to teach all those other blacks the proper way to live?" And it hurts me to have to tell him, not yet. Not yet. But then I quote him a little poem, and he's happy again. The world is full of beauty, as are the worlds above. And if we do our duty, it might be full of love. Now, I don't know if any of that means anything to you, but if it does, I'd like you to think about it.
Charged with the murder of innocent people. How do you play it?
Who the hell are you?
On behalf of my people and all people, I'm your judge and jury. How do you play it?
Wake up! Wake up!
I find you guilty as charged. By your actions, you forfeited the right to live among your fellow humans. I sentence you to hang by the neck until death.
You can't do that!
Sic transit Gloria Monday.
It's
fucking crazy, man. Shit.
All like gold dust, but all in the wind. You see? It's always...
It's fucking crazy, man. Shit.
All like gold dust, but all in the wind. You see? It's always...
It's fucking crazy, man. Shit.
All like gold dust, but all in the wind. You see? It's always...
It's fucking crazy, man. Shit.
All like gold dust, but all in the wind. You see? It's always...
It's fucking crazy, man. Shit.
More like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man. Shit.
more like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Rosimi Nanu. Welcome to Ta-Seti Studios, outside the studios. Right now, I'm here with Brother Aha from Rochester. What's up, my brother? Yes, sir. We missed you out the last Dr. Umar joint, man. I was asking Brother Jerry where you was at, but I ain't see you, man.
Yeah, well, look here. I missed that one, but hey, you know, the first one. And look what we got coming in here right now. We got the elder, the real elder, Dr. J up in the house. Dr. Jefferies, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine.
All
brother.
right, I'm glad to see you.
Okay, glad to be seen.
All right.
Yes. How are you doing, brother? Good to see you. Okay. Well, it's good. It's good to be here in Buffalo. Even though the weather's getting a little chilly, but you know we're warm.
If I ever was to see you, I was going to ask you about the ice cream. I understand now, man.
But you need to start with the beginning.
Okay.
In the beginning was the Sun People.
Yeah.
And as the Sun People evolved from the first humanity into the highest levels of ancient humanity, there were two cradles, a cradle of the south, a cradle of the north. South was the cradle of the sun, and the cradle of the north was the cradle of the ice. And Europe was dominated by the ice over 100,000-year period. And so it's been thought by Dr. Sheikh Diop and other great scholars that those Africans who were trapped in the north couldn't get back into the sun, mutated, and eventually lost their melanin, or at least the epidermal melanin, learned to survive in the rural, rare, brutal cave climate of the north. And so another type of humanity developed, and it didn't have that value system of the sun, which is what I call the 3 C's: communal, cooperative, and collective, learning to live together spiritually. It developed the predator value system of the ice: individualism, competitivism, exploitationism. And so that northern humanity has been trying to find its way back into humanity, so it always invades the south. It doesn't invade the north. It goes into the south to look for life, to look for rebirth and resurrection. Yes.
Now another question.
Yes.
The European scholar, he wrote the Iceman Inheritance.
Right. He was a European American. I think he had Native American background.
Yeah, Michael Bradley.
Michael Bradley, and he wrote the European Iceman Inheritance. And then he wrote another book in reference to the ICE. He has two books, because Dr. Clark did an intro to the second book.
Right.
Yeah. But if anybody can speak about the predator value system of the Northern Cradle, it's someone who has a Native American background, because the Europeans came across the ocean, met civilization and cultures in the so-called New World, and tens of millions of people were destroyed. It's the greatest Holocaust in the history of the world.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think white people believe that, though? I mean,
They don't have to believe it, they just do it.
Yeah.
They
don't have to believe it. That's what they
just do it. And then some of our people who act like them, they just do it too. So the predator value system can be transferred. And so these are the things that we've got to understand. Get into that sun and you see life and you feel it. The ice, it just, when you're up here in Baltimore, Buffalo, freezing your butts off, you have another type of, you know.
okay, I wanted to ask you a question about...
This is the last question,
Okay.
Otherwise I'm going to have to charge you.
The court decision, man.
The greatest victory.
When they reversed it.
No, they didn't reverse it. See, that's why people got you all controlled. I took...
This is just from some research that I was looking
Right,
at.
and they got kicked in their butt so bad that there's no way in hell they could allow that victory to stand. But they can't take it from us. Headlines of the Daily News that attacked me, the New York Post that attacked me, Daily News. Scholar wins victory and he's $400,000 richer.
All right.
But see, they never let us get that money. They appealed it to Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. But see, they don't understand that little bit of money that they had to pay millions of dollars of my legal fees because we won.
Right.
Okay?
It cost them more to say the point of
That's right. And so, but they just have to keep chipping away at you. Look, the African mind met the European mind on the battlefield of their court. And it game over. Game over. We won it the first day.
Game over.
The first day when the judge came into court, my lawyers told me we had a brilliant law team. Brother, this is one of our greatest brothers. Brother Alfred.
All right.
So you
can see the respect. You see the respect.
We went in the court to do battle. We had sued the New York State, the New York City, the New York City University. My lawyer said, don't be late, because when the judge comes in at 10 o'clock, the court stands up, and you got to be there. And so it's hard for me not to be late, because I'm just a late person. On time,
you are.
a late person.
You're an African for real.
That's right. It's timing. It ain't being on time. Well, at any rate, I got there. Even my mother got there. She had to come in from Jersey.
Your brother with you?
And my brother,
Bodyguard?
I have the most fantastic brother, guardian spirit that you can imagine. Okay. And so he's still with me. He's into African martial arts, Universal Goju. And at 75 years, he passed several levels of tests, blindfolded, that the head of the school says, no one else has ever done that. So I'm dealing with a brother who told me when Mayor Koch, everybody wanted to kick me in the butt. And I was ready. That's right.
I heard you tell me.
I went down with my brother and the books. He rolled in a big box of books. I rolled in, and we kicked Mayor Koch's butt in his office in Rockefeller Center. Okay. So it's about the victory. You tap into this history and you're victorious. What we did was we got Joseph Fleming, our male lawyer, Deborah Garraway, the female lawyer, a female legal assistant and a male legal. 4 black people, 2 males, 2 females. We're up against the New York State lawyers, the New York City lawyers, and the university lawyers. And they kicked butt. But within the hour of arriving in the court, and the judge stood up, and then they had the recess. But the judge announced, well, they had the recess. Then we went to the African burial ground.
Oh, okay.
Right across the street.
Yeah.
and we prayed to the ancestors, did our libations, etc. And then we went back in the court, and the judge announced that every part of the Albany speech, every scintilla, every question, every period is protected by freedom of speech. End of, the victory was won within the first hours of the court process. But then we had to go through the...
I just had to mess up the interview.
No, Deborah, good to see you. And see, what happened was, we knew we had won, so it was a victory parade. We just devastated the chancellor of the university, the dean of the college, the Negro president of the college. My lawyers were so strong that the person I called the head Jew, Dr. Bernhard Sommer, who used to be the dean, etc., when he saw what was happening in the court, he told the lawyers of the state of New York and City University and the city of New York, I will not testify today and I will not be back. The head Jewish person was not going to be subject to this type of ridicule. And he had his 12-year-old daughter, he and her walked out. But we made one mistake. We allowed a white man who had a Harvard degree and was in architecture to stay in the jury. We should have knocked him out. So when all of the proceedings was done, it went to the jury. The jury was out for 11 days. The case was clear. This dude was holding out.
One guy.
The jury had to handle 44 questions. They gave me 43. The only one they gave was when this dude was holding out so long, and the question was, do you think that the black community would have rioted if the Jefferies victory was so and so and so? Well, nobody in the white and black people in the jury didn't believe that, but this dude was holding out, so finally they said, look, we've been out 11 days, we need to get back in with the victory. And so they said, we'll agree. Yes, there might have been the fear. The college acted because of the fear of the black community rioting. Well, black community wasn't worried about rioting. We were winning. They ain't worried about rioting. But they used that. The appeal court later used that to say the jury didn't quite know what they wanted to do. You can give us 43 victories and one, and you say they don't know what they want to do? Look, we won. We appealed it. We won. They put me back as the chair for the 2 years. Then 2 years after the victory was won, they came back and said, appeal it. Come back in court. This is the Supreme Court telling the City University, come back in court. Why? Because that Albany speech would have been the measure of freedom of speech in the U.S. constitutional history, which would have meant that every lawyer going to law school would have had to study the speech. And if you read the speech, it was an attack on America that has never been made before. It wasn't the Jews. It wasn't we got everybody. We got who was involved in slavery: Jefferson, Washington, all of it.
Every bit of it, because I just watched it about 3 days ago.
Hey, the struggle continues. Power to people, power to black people who got some good sense. Hey, how you doing now, bro? Well, you better hurry up.
Get the camera.
They ready to close down.
Yeah, let me shut this down.
It's fucking crazy, man.
All like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man.
all like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Fucking crazy, man.
all like gold dust blowing in the wind. You see? It's always
Thank you again to our keynote speaker. We now move on to our third plenary of this this afternoon, which is our fourth in total. And I would like to invite the moderator to the stage first, Brother Adisa. Oh, okay. Brother Adisa is going to introduce our final presenters of this afternoon, Doctors Leonard and Robert Jefferies. And I'll hand the mic over to Brother Adisa. You want to mention your topic?
Okay, hotel everyone. All right. Thanks so much. We got a very short time, so I'm going to make this quick for Sister Rosalind and Brother Leonard Jefferies. Their topic is going to be wisdom of the elders, complementarity of the male and female principles. And this is the first that I've seen, and I hope that we'll be able to have it once again where they're co-presenting. It's hard to sum up almost 40 years in a couple of minutes, but I feel like that when my parents in Highland Falls, New York, and Hillsborough, Alabama allowed me to come to New York, that Sister Rosalind and Brother Leonard took up that role, and they have guided me, helped me grow in so many ways. And I'm not by myself because they have done this for the African world, both in California, in New York, in Ivory Coast, Senegal, Brazil, Haiti. So they're very, very important to the African world. And I just want to say in terms of Dr. Jefferies, if Dr. Park truly had another son other than Sony, it was Leonard Jefferies. And with that, I'd like to bring him to the stage. Whenever you're ready.
Yay, Bo!
Hotel family, it's a pleasure to always join the family when something important is happening, and certainly ASCAC is one of those important activities. First and foremost, I want to thank the Eastern Region Planning Committee, the leadership, for bringing us together for this important event in the Wild Wild West of Buffalo. Let's give our sister Deborah and her team an acknowledgement and a round of applause. And certainly, you need to give yourselves a round of applause for staying with us for these couple of days, getting involved in this serious activity that we're about. And some of you who are new, this is just your baptism into these activities. There's much more that will be developed and has been developed that you will know about. So give yourselves a round of applause.
Ashe!
And my wife and I will try to end it up as succinctly as we can. We're excited to see our people come together, particularly since we've been blessed to be together more than 50 years. So next month we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary. But the African work and the significance of Africa in our lives began years before we actually jumped over the broom. Rosalind is a pioneer in the work on Africa. She went to Nigeria in 1960 in the summer with Operation Crossroads Africa. That was before Nigeria became independent. I was in Europe at that time studying in Switzerland and going to Paris, meeting Sheikh Anta Diop, Aliou Diop, and the others. So we had our introduction to the African experience even before the actual marriage a few years later. So we're long distance runners in this struggle. So I'm glad that we can be here to give some words of wisdom from the elders. Before we bring her on, number one, ASCAC as an organization comes out of a struggle of African peoples for many years, if not a couple of centuries, and particularly this last century, of trying to recapture the African mind. And in capturing the African mind, set ourselves on a path of revolutionary African transformation. So ASCAC is not an isolated phenomenon. It's a part of an awareness that has been growing among our people. And certainly we need it because one of our great scholars, Dr. Asa, here, Dr. Carruthers, and the sisters, including Colonial and Zinga, have been promoting this organization and trying to expand its reach. One of our great scholars, he's a black psychologist, African psychologist, but he's also into the African centeredness. Dr. Wade Noble said it best: the problem that we face has to deal with the fact that African people, wherever we are suffering from a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity. And so as you see us coming together like this gathering, we're trying to restore that consciousness to an African formulation and clarify that identity. So there's a large work that we've taken upon ourselves to do, and we've been very successful at it, and we're on a victorious path. But we need to interact more with each other so we can appreciate that. Sister Ricketti dropped a bombshell on us today. And so, and that's beautiful. Let's give her an acknowledgement around the world. And her great work in studying the language and the culture with her associate and mentor, Dr. Jacob Carruthers, has reached the point where she feels that the organization should take the lead, not just within the context of our various organizations, but to take the lead nationally and internationally in making meta-nature a real live part of our growth and development. So we really have to understand how important the sisters' presentation was. But we're not starting yesterday. We have a process that's in place. And my advice would be, and I told Sister Ricketti when I thanked her, was that the proposal that she made, the commission of studying meta-nature, is right on time. And right on time also has come the president, international president of ASCAC. The proposal is right on time. The process is that it is presented to the board, to the president of your association, Mario Bini. He will present it to the larger executive commission on meta-nature as part of the national process of ASCAC to expand the commissions that already exist is something that we should do. But it has to be brought before the board makes a decision on these matters. A conference on meta-nature, that's another object, another process that needs to be considered. Recommendation most likely from Mario, I believe, as an elder speaking to our great leader. Let's give him an acknowledgement, a round of applause. Put your hand up in the air, Mario. So a conference is a difficult and a heavy thing to do. The conference, as she outlined, may be not possible at this juncture. However, we do have a process. We meet every June or July. We have our 2-day retreat. And certainly that issue of how to handle meta-nature, the implications of an international conference on it, certainly could be a part of that, if Mario and the leadership feels that it should be done. A retreat in which we bring in some of the heavies, such as Dr. Theophilo Banga and others, to sit down with us to decide the implications of how you make this a living language in the time of the globalization of the human family and in the time of science and technology. So I don't want you to go away and say, well, what was she talking about? How does it fit with the ASCAC I'm trying to tell you that it does flow within what we need to do, but there's a process that people can use to make it clear that we can bring it back to you. Sister Ricketti, as she stated, has been about making this language a reality for so many people, and now it's going on the electronic process and digitized and all the rest of it. To end our activities this weekend, this is not the end of what we do. This is just the beginning. So we're ending the activity here in Buffalo, and I prayed to the ancestors, the Creator, and I told them to keep the snow away. And so I want to you all to give me some thanks for having me. We need the rain. Snow I don't know about. But anyway, this is an ongoing process of Africans claiming their world. And so it's not limited to a weekend, it's not limited to a commission, it's not limited to learning a language. It's a global struggle. Whoever controls the African mind, M-I-N-D, controls the African mind, M-I-N-D. Let me say it again. Whoever controls the African minds, M-I-N-D, controls the African mind, M-I-N-E. The wealth of the world is located in Africa, and there are designs and institutions and organizations that have been put in place and systems, massive systems, to control the wealth of Africa. And the reason for the dislocation of the African mind is because others want that wealth, and it's still going on. So we're involved in, and I'll talk about it after my wife makes her presentation, intellectual warfare. And so what we do has to be put into that calculation. We're involved in trying to develop the global African family. And then what we do has to be put in terms of that calculation. We're trying to restore the balance and harmony between the male and the female principle, which is dislocated. We're trying to deal with the capture of our men in a new enslavement process in which our beautiful sister, Michelle Alexander, wrote it in her work, The New Jim Crow. There are millions of black men primarily that are in a modern slave system, and they cannot serve themselves or their families or our people. So there is an enormous struggle that all of this is about. And so we need to internally go into Meta and use it. And we need to externally go out and unify as best we can in consciousness the African global family. So those few words of introduction will set up what I will say. After my wife, who is the pioneer, she first led the way to Africa. She's been a fantastic reason for why I have been able to do what I have to do. You can't do it by yourself. The mothers birth you, the grandmothers take care of you, the wives and partners make sure you're doing it right. And then if you have a wife and partner for 50 plus years, you've got to have laid out something serious. So without further ado, Rosa Jefferies, who is famous for taking conferences to new levels. And she comes up, I'll tell you about a conference we had in Chicago, in which it was the National Conference of Artists, and all these great artists were there, and she got up to speak, and she was going and going and going, and I said, oh goodness, my wife is way past her time. I need to step in, you know, her husband anxious. And so I was in the back holding up the time sign. Time, time. And then she kept going and going, and nobody was feeling any hurt, pain, and everybody. So I said, relax, brother. Come to find out, the other people on the panel gave up their time so she could present. And it didn't stop there. They took the conference out of the McCormick Center where we had it, and they carried it down the expressway to the hotel, and it continued there. That's the woman that you're being introduced to, Rosa Jefferies. She won't be able to do what she intended to do because the technology has not worked, the time has gone. We're at the end of this process, but we'll be continuing it. We're going to Atlanta in a few days to continue this with another organization that was birthed, one of the first of the organizations in 1968-69, the African Heritage Studies Association, Dr. Clark's premier organization in terms of fighting for the African mind. So we'll be going to Atlanta for that. Rosa?
What's up?
Thank God that we're all here and together and that we're on the move of what's happening right now. To come here and to delve in the history is to be able to go back in the time and bring it alive in the present. And so when we talk about Sasa and Samani, those are old ancient terms are coming from the tradition and then forming it to those words. So that now is the eternal now. And the eternal now is being, is who? Being, the presence. So while it's Kepler coming into being, it's not so much coming into being totally from the future, that you're going into the future, but you have reached back into Samani, the past. I say that because those are some of the concepts I was teaching this week. In my African art class, we were taking a look at the systems and the thoughts of the 12 people, who are also called Mbuti, the Botswana, BTSWA, that TWA that's in there is the same Twami, the song, the earliest people that we know to exist. We are parent people, and from them came the rest of the races of humanity. And so that studying them is to study the philosophy, concepts, and ideas of spirituality, because they consider themselves a spiritual being, which we all are. Then as civilizations began to develop more and more along the Nile, the Niger, those civilizations became our high cultures of civilizations in urban settings. And so when you deal in the urban, and you have so much, the nations that have not want to come in and take over. And so your whole demeanor changed at that point. From being in the Garden of Eden, in the pristine delights of the here and now, basking in the essence of Pooh, you have to change it. On the temple walls, we saw in Kemet the Battle of Kadesh, the battle against the various Hyksos, the battle against the Assyrians, the Persians, and eventually the Greeks and the Romans who took over all of Kemet. And so that there were two philosophies. And so we want to go back and understand ourselves from the 12th perspective, the Garden of Eden perspective, the perfection of basking in the now, and also the perspective of dealing with the enemies. Now, when we study the metametric, we're studying the idea of reading in pictures. Our history deals with a language of signs and symbols. When we go to sleep at night, we see pictures, and eventually you do journaling, and you learn the code that you have formed within your own being to interpret you talking to you, or to God talking to you, or to demons talking to you when you have horrible or horror kinds of things, and you have to wake up and continually go back and wash and put yourself in perspective. And so too, studying Meta Nature, studying the ancient cultures of the entire world, we as apparent people have come to the understanding that we have to interpret the visual reality for the world as apparent people. We have to look at the old strange Mickey Mouse versions of who they said we were. At Essex Community College, there's an exhibition that's called Subject to Change. And the advertisement for it, and in the exhibit I saw it, was a woman, dark black skin, painted such that part looked like it was blue-black, another was kind of brownish, almost reddish, and she had her lips sticking out. And the lips had the epithelial tissue that's pink. It was totally pink, top and bottom, pushing those lips out. And then her eyelashes were the false eyelashes of today. And the hair was blonde hair. And the image was asking, are we playing into negative stereotypes, or have we become the stereotypes? Sometimes some people, in trying to get that look, end up looking like clowns. But then on the other hand, we can't say that, because I teach African art. And some of the most bodacious things that were done. So we don't say go to the beauty parlor and get your hair done in African art. Those were hair sculptures. Ideas created on top of the head using bone, stone, jewels, using claws and teeth, whatever, to make a big visual effect, to the point that if you can't do it totally yourself, which you couldn't, it took 2 or 3 people to create hair sculpture on top of your head. So there's something in us that wants us to go beyond the ordinary, to identify exactly who we are. And so we learn the signs and symbols of Meta Nature because it's a language form connected to the entire continent. And the example that you know so readily is of the Ankh, right? And we know the Ankh from the Tellinger book. 200,000 years ago, that same symbol existed. We know it from Ghana as the Aquaba doll that was created out of wood. And people would say that, yes, the old woman took this image that was given to her by the practitioner of her day and said, yes, you carry this around for a certain period of time, which were lunar cycles, and you would give a child, give birth to a child. So what was it that she was going to give birth to? When can a piece of wood take the place of a masculine phallic form and the sperm that comes out to meet the egg? It was the consciousness that if you take because we call it a doll because it was in the image where the eyes started one half of the disc and had a little pursed mouth, a little nose. And the thought was this childlike form, if you carried it in your garment, it meant that you would become humble. You look at it as a mirror every day. For these cycles, and you picked up the childlike simplicity and the quality, not overloaded with brain thoughts and ideas and the intellect, but you became sweet and tender, learnable, teachable. And so that was the essence of fertility. And that's what we learned from the symbol of the Ankh that Dr. Ben taught so well in complementarity. The female form on top, the genitals are the sun symbol, and down below was the T sign that represented the masculinity and the earth, the sky and the earth coming together. And so too, you study the Kananga symbol of the Dogon people, and you study the symbols of ancient Kemet, and you find the hand, the ka raised up, was the symbol of life. And down below, that rectilinear shape was beginning to get to be the form that was becoming the water of the earth or land of the earth. So you had heaven and earth and the forms together. Reading signs and symbols from your own dreams or from the ancestry from which you came. Reading the signs and symbols that will unite you from just Kemet to the entire continent. There's another symbol that we call a hedge. And the hedge in Kemetic Meta-Neter is a circle and a line coming up from the top and from the bottom. That form is a form that we find in Central Africa. It was a piece of leather, type of a leather instrument that could swim. If you throw it on water, it was like a life-saving device. But it means light. L-I-G-H-T was the symbol. And so to that same form we find down in the Congo area. And the sense that it was also light. They had these boomerang shapes that you see sometimes in Kemet. And then down the Shango, Bongongo, people of the Bushango, they had people of the throwing knives. They made a knife in the shape of an S or an F or a T. And the men to be men learned how to throw them, and they would come back. And they learned how to catch it on one of the projections had a kind of like leather where you could capture it back. And so that I'm saying, and if you look at Hawkwood's journey written in hieroglyphics, and he talks about his trip going down to the Ituri forest, and he brings back one of those instruments. And so thus you see the Kemetic connection with that part of the world. And so too, the word in stool, that's the stool that we see in Kemetic Meta-Neter. That's the stool of Ghana, and from the great empires throughout. And so that becomes interesting, and we heard in the talk today, Infadishi was talking about the symbol, and Dr. Ntera was talking about the symbol for love being a plow. And so what we think of as love is that heart-shaped Valentine, sharp end on the bottom that could pierce you, and the top part dipping down. But I tell you, that's not what it was for the Kemetic people. When they put the heart symbol on the weighing scale, it was a very organic piece of clay that became a pot. And that was the symbol for Ib, heart. Very organic. And so too, this plow was to plow into the earth. And where do we find it re-emerging? With the Bamana people in Mali, the Bambara people in Mali. So they created these sculptures that were called Chihuahua. That was a composite image of the antelope because the antelope was so graceful and could move in grace. It reminds you of a neighboring people who had the antelopes of grace. On the same image they had the hyena and then the leopard teeth, saying that that's the way you have to be in life. You have to be such that you can rip things apart when you must, and you must use the grace to get through. But like a hyena, there's a time when you need to just laugh it off. Not forget, but play the laughter. And so that helped us to survive on the plantations, because we knew how to grin and smile at the right time so that the generations could follow and follow. And we knew how to keep the grace and the charm and not to go fully stone crazy. And so these adaptations, and so I go back to this exhibit to say, how are we adapting in the technological age, like wise people or like fools? And so that becomes the study of us in this day, age, and time. But thank God we have a God that the superimposition on top of us, very high, and filters down into our body. I was very much impressed by Dr. Tina's talk today. It was a wonderful talk, and it reminded me of the talk that I gave in Essex County College in Newark when we were all assembled in the National. And as she began to show you the pyramid on top, the cube in between, and then the pyramid down below, and that there was a spherical ball that turned in the middle, but the pharaoh, the leader in suit, was in the center, and that center meant that he had connections through the apex of the pyramid straight up to Sirius and the 3 stars in Orion's belt. And that's how we have to be. So that the talk I gave at Essex County, I was talking about being centered. And then I gave it in honor of Dr. Fukiao, who was a priest who departed from us. But he taught us very much in ASCAC. He came to ASCAC. Asa Hilliard knew about him. He had a quiet manner about him, but as if it was the quietness of the ages. He's been through many secret societies in his village as he was coming up, and he's the one that people from the Yale universities and the Harvards, when they want to know about some of the philosophy of the Congo, they went to Dr. Fukiao. And he gave the information about the Congo cosmogram, the big circle with the cross in the middle, and the horizontal line was the Kalunga, and the midpoint of the Kalunga is what I thought of when I was listening to Dr. Ntina. The center, and Dr. Fukiao said, walking in 7 directions was the knowledge that was embedded in the secret societies. So here is a philosophy from the Congo with its affinity in Kemet, which was the topic of what I was talking about in Essex County College. He said to walk in 7 directions. You had to walk forward in life. You had to move forward in life. Even though, according to the Torah, move forward meant move back. Because all of the knowledge and wisdom, you know how we have been saying that we believe that we were smarter or more spiritual way back. Because it was the wisdom and the spirit of the ages that you were supposed to take and have living in you in the present. So there was no such thing as apocalypse or the end time is coming. That's the paradise view before the fall in the Garden of Eden. There's no coming into book of Revelation, pouring out the vials of whether it's Ebola or whatever the vials of horrors are that we have to endure or come through or pass through in our training. And so to walk forward was still a kind of forward. To walk backwards was another kind of belief that he had. So that walking backwards was going back into this tsunami. To the left, he said, was your enemies. And nobody should live without understanding who the enemies of your soul are. The Yoruba do a very good job of defining exactly what those 8 spirits of Ajun, A-J-O-G-U-N, Ajun. And they define it so that you will not be walking around ignorant, not knowing how to put on the whole armor of God, so that you have the breastplate of righteousness. You have the word of God that's your 2-edged sword, that you can fight battles with your words. that you have the feet shod with the preparation of Hotep, right? Hotep. And that you know how to deal fully in those realms, like the images of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is an aspect of God supreme. You see him standing and treading upon scorpions and demons. And he's grabbing the power of the animal world in his hands. He grabs the serpent and four-legged animals in his hands, and he's standing there treading upon scorpions and troubles and problems. And that became the image of Jesus Christ as God, walking on the water, walking on the turbulence. And that's what we must do today. As you leave here, there'll be things waiting and ready for you. Some of those things, you must not let them overcome you, but you stick your head up into the heights of where you should be. And those praises and those thanks and those wonderful things like the antelope horns, the grace, is what gets you over and keeps you going, so that you'll be able to do well, do good, talk good, walk good, and pass it on to the next generation. So your right hand, according to Dr. Foucault, is where your friends are, your family, your collective associates. On the right hand, the woman came and said, oh, let my sons of Zebedee sit on the right hand in heaven. Can you eat what I eat, was the response. In other words, can you digest the service, the sacrifice that's to be made so that others can be free and find the light of their souls? And so you had the walking to the left, walking to the right, and walking backwards with the ancestors too. But then there was another realm too of walking down. How do you walk down? Walk down is to walk down into the earth where you have the minerals, the iron, the copper, down where you have the jewels and the gems, where you have caves and taverns, and even water down under the earth. All of those things are walking down. You have to understand the herbs and the plants and learn them very well and how they can help to heal the body. So that's walking down a whole thing in the Congo about the use of plants for many reasons, to change the aura of the body, to change the emotions of the body, the passions. Plants play a key role, and so you must know how to walk down. And then, of course, you have to know how to go up. And to learn how to walk up, you know, in Kemet we find the two little walking legs. That means motion and action and walking in Metanetria. You go to Sanufo, ancestral sculpture, and that's what they have. Legs sticking on the head, not coming, or sometimes a neck amongst the Lega people, and then legs, the Bakuba, do the same thing. Two legs underneath the neck. So that this idea of sticking legs on certain things is certainly like what we have seen in Kemet when we see the Ankh, right? And at the bottom of the Ankh you can see two legs walking sometime. Or the Dej column of stability, and underneath there are two legs that begin to walk and to move, to let you know that we're talking about motion and movement, and nothing in the universe tends to be static. And so in order to really move up, you have to have a core. And so that number 7, walking the 7 directions, is the inner core of your own being, where that heart is, where the pump is, where the pump of love is. And so you say to yourself, love, yes, what is love? They said love was the agricultural tool to show that you're digging into the ground. Mother Earth, digging into mother. And you find the Baga sculpture. A boy can't be a man unless he goes through the rituals with the Baga sculpture. Has a big nose, huge, monstrous thing, and then has the image of a woman with long breasts like sacks hanging down. They have categorized the breast, the types of breasts, whether you have something look like a lemon, like a melon, like whatever fruit, but also the long sacks meant that you have some age on you, and you have birthed many children. And if you have not birthed them, you were part of the village collective that had to raise all of the children, so that you would end up saying about the children and the many and the village and the many mothers and fathers. And so that was part of the central learning as to what love is, coming from the nurturing of your mother. But I've heard too that in describing what love is today, we need to revisit these concepts. Yes, to plow into Mother Earth, but then when you get a wife, you have to have a contract, like you have permission from the whole village that it takes to raise the child. You have permission to plow into the ground. And when you do, the land becomes yours. You have license from the collective to do that. And so too, when you marry, the best way is to have a contract with the woman. You just don't go just lay down at any old place and any old somebody. You have a contract, whether it was like one of those marriages, what do you call them in law, common law marriages, where in slavery and coming out, you know, you had the intent. And so there was an intent understood between the couple and the village at large that what you were going to do with this particular. So you have to apply permission to plow into, to lay your seeds so that they will ferment and tri-semester and then come forward and to wonder as a living being, to stand in the Sasa looking back into the Zamani. And so that we as people must be like Kemet with a plan to move forward, but also understanding ourselves, living right here into the here and now. And so that Kepra Pu, Kepra Pu, Pu to be. Now I did prepare an extensive slide presentation, but that presentation somehow or other doesn't fit on the laptop. I did it on the PC. And in the process of doing it, I took a moving image that I shot at the Schomburg Library in New York City. There was a person there, was a classmate of mine back in the old days at Yale University. We were both studying and getting our PhD, and his name was Fred Lamp. He runs the Yale University Art Gallery today. And he presented a whole new body of images that I had already seen, because Leonard, when he was with the mayors in Nigeria, brought back some catalogs talking about all of this new unearthing and new findings of Nok culture, N-O-K. I have been lecturing that it was 500 BC, but the catalog and Fred Lamp was saying that no, it's far older, more or less like 1000 and 2000 BC. And then he began to run some of his footage trying to relate that Nok culture to Kemet. And that's what I had on the video that apparently wasn't going to be shown today. But I can say to you that those comparisons were interesting. And he said, President Mario Beatty, he said that there were millions of dollars being poured into the white researchers are doing what we have been doing for a long time. And he made reference to as new stuff as if it had never been done before, which means they're wiping out Asa Hilliard's work, wiping out Jake Carruthers, and all that we have been doing. It means that we have to be even more expert. And so he ended up showing what is pool amongst the cultures of West Africa, that spiral, and the idea of why it's the presentation. And you know, in Kemet too, they have pool, but it also the speech scroll, you know, it became part of a speech scroll. To be, it was energy, talking about the energy of that. So I say that to say that the connection and the work to be done with Kemet and other portions of the continent is indeed very, very strong. And finally, I end saying too that these symbols that I've been looking at and studying, coming from cave art in South Africa, coming from the Tanzanian cave art, 40,000 BC, coming from the Tessali region, 8,000, 6,000 BC, and as was mentioned by Sister Rakeni, 8,000 BC is when Medu Neter was being formed. But the language from which it was being formed was the language of these earlier cave art periods. And the way that I say that the Ankh was not indigenous to Africa alone, but existed before Kemet was ever Kemet. It existed in the thoughts and the ideas and the consciousness of our people. What a great God we serve. I thank you, Lord. I thank you who speaks to us in the unknown and the known. And I thank you, Lord, because you are the one that teach us to walk in 7 directions. And let us know that you are the center of our life. And that love comes in many forms and in many types. That the plowing of the ground and the plowing into our own being. And so that some of the authors have been saying that love is a gift. You know how in some marriages you look at it, we're talking about complementarity. There's some women that look for a gift. And you don't bring them a gift and they think the world is over. You didn't remember my birthday. You didn't. That giving a gift somehow is equated with the love. The greatest gift is the love that comes from above, that works with the centeredness of our heart and goes down deep into the earth and the universe, ricochets and come back around east, west, and the circle and come back and resides in the sasa, the here and now that is eternity. We love you. We love you with a great passion because you loved us first. Because you knew what love was before we did. And some people look to think that love has to do with affirmation. I love you because you affirm my being and my presence. You give me a sense of identity in marriages or relationships. And people love others because they affirm who they are within the identity of their birth identity and not necessarily who they think you ought to be, you see. And so I wish for you in love the optimum best to know what love is. And then there's some people who deal with time. Well, you don't love me. If you loved me, you would spend more time with me, says the children. Well, it's quality time. Okay, it's quality time. But spending time, God says, you're mine. I call you by my name. And time, I'll make time stand still. Sun will stand still if you say so, because I love you in the time of the here and now. I love you so much, you're mine. So time, and so we saw the symbols today for time. Infadishu showed you the nehet, those tethering ropes and the circle dot that represents Ra. So time within Ra, who exists inside and outside of time. We who are finite beings may not have a full grasp of the time. And so Paul and his people, they came across some people who were worshiping at an altar that was the altar of the unknown God. Is that how foolish? Unknown God? No, that's Kemetic. To understand that you are a finite being, and unless you are connected with the infinite, with Sirius, going through those pyramids straight on up, then you know who you are in a full understanding, because God is so great. The consciousness can't always embrace something so infinite. And so our Kemetic people were wise to understand that. There's the parable that they, I think my time is how's my time? Okay, all right, so the story of the people in East Africa saying, what is God like? And so the blind men, they said it was a group of blind men, came across an elephant, and the elephant represented God, and said, do you each one come back and tell me what you think God is like, what you experience? And one said, oh, touch the big side of the body. Oh, God is a living wall. The other one grabbed the foot and said, oh, it's like the trunk of a tree, a very solid. Another one grabbed the rope. I know you heard the story before, but it talks about the infinite and why God is the unknown God. It's like a piece of rope, the tail. I got the tail. And the other one like a trunk. No, it's not that short. It's a trunk, but I mean, it's a rope, but it's not that kind of rope that you're talking. I want to grab the tusk. It's hard, like metal. It's like iron. It's so hard. And of course, it's the diversity that ASCAT bathes itself in, that we can understand these understandings of who God is and come out that way. And then, of course, love has to do with touch. They say, well, baby, you know, if I can't have my sex every other night, then you don't love me. But you remember the old days, just a little peck, a little kiss, a touch. And then the gospel song was, oh, he touched me. It would be mother and father, he, she. God, you touched me. And oh, the joy that flooded my entire being. The endorphins started to move. The orgasmic flow of the universe of Newt started moving in my body. It's the flow. You touched me, but not just a physical, earthly thing. It was a different touch that came from above and down below in the earth. And that sensitiveness was such that you end up saying, and oh, the touch of that joy made me whole. And I end saying that that wholeness is what we are seeking, and some of us are not seeking, but some of us have found. We love you, Lord. We love you, Lord, because your love is beyond us. We love you, Lord, because it's your love that put us in a wave and a mood, Father, that redeems us and brings us back into the family and the fold. We love you because you have plowed the universe and found us and said, you are mine. I love you. Hotep. Amen.
Brothers, don't go anywhere because we have some time left for questions and answers for both Dr. Roslin and Dr. Leonard. Anybody have anything that they want to? Nobody?
Yeah, they're trying to see if any questions, but he about to talk.
This quickly. We know that you've been here all day. We know you've been working hard, trying to make this conference work. Those of you who have a responsibility, those of you who shifted your time so you could be here with us, we want to send you off on a most positive spiritual way. Whoever controls the images controls the self-esteem, the self-respect, the self-development. And so this work that we're talking about is designed to help you control your self-esteem, what you think about yourself, your self-respect, how you respect yourself and others, and your spiritual as well as economic and political development. So that this work that we're talking about is designed personally to help you become a greater African, to help you become a greater person, individual, to help you develop the spiritual strength to become a light unto your family, and also work with others moving in that direction to create communities that are renewable. So we don't want to leave you with thinking that this is an academic exercise or people who have deep knowledge trying to bring it up to you. We want you to understand that with this knowledge, you can refashion yourself. Life is about change, transformation, rebirth, and resurrection. If you have the right material, the right spiritual material. But life is also about change, transformation, and degeneration if you're using the wrong material. So ASCAC is a part of this awakening of African people in which we are tapping into our great strength. Symbols are so important as the meta nature has demonstrated, and I want to leave you with this important symbol, among others. This was created by African leaders led by the President of Senegal. This is what ASCAC is all about. This is what the various organizations that we created is all about. This is about renewal, rebirth, resurrection. The President of Senegal was given a charge by other African leaders to create this for African peoples. It's the rise of the black man. And he doesn't rise by himself or for himself. He's rising
with his family,
leaning on that rock that is the black woman. And they're not rising for themselves. They're rising to create new life. And so there is that child that's a product of their love. And so this is a symbol designed specifically for our time. It was purposely designed to be larger than the Statue of Liberty, which is an African symbol that was taken from us. It's designed to be larger than Jesus the Redeemer, overlooking Rio. And Jesus the Redeemer, I've been to Rio many times, and I've been to that sign, that symbol, and that sign, and I knew there was something spiritual there that was missing, that wasn't being told. And when I went there a few years ago, the truth came out that Jesus the Redeemer, given by the Italians for the Catholics of Brazil, is mounted and standing on the shrine of the Black Madonna. And the African woman at the center of this symbolism has now been opened. All these years they didn't open the shrine, but now they're letting the truth come out. This is a reflection of what's happening universally, that this truth of our people is coming out. This particular symbolism, steps leading to it. You can put thousands of students from Senegal there, and then you have the leaders in their various activities with the students. You can go inside and take an elevator after you pass the exhibits of our history. There's history that's in the meta-nature. There's history that Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. A.C., and all the rest of us have been bringing forth. It's in exhibits inside this institution. You can take an elevator up 15 stories through the powerful thighs of the black man, through his strong backbone, and pass his shoulders into his mind. And as an observer, you can look out on the world through the mind of the black man. The black man is holding his child. He's not playing with his child. And that child is pointing to the future. That child is not pointing, as I said last night, to the north, where we usually look for sustenance, expecting white folks to deliver us. It's not pointing east to the new boys on the block, China and India. It's not pointing southeast to Mecca. It's not pointing south to the rest of Africa. That child is pointing to the Western Hemisphere. It is the unity of Africans in the West with the continent, the mother-father continent, that will be the future for African folks. We're not up against just a system of white supremacy. We're up against global systems of domination, and they're fighting for the prize of dominating the most important prize there is, Africa. So you're working against African global families that are up against the global families of the Arabs, the global families of the Europeans, the global families of the Asians. And so we have to look for this larger struggle. It's not just about your personal enhancement and growth and development. That's a part of it. But going outside of yourself to the cosmos, it's about how do we reconstitute the African family based upon truth of who and what we are, and we are the chosen people. We are the mothers and fathers of the universe. And that's why it's so important to get into the Mediterranean, to get into the Nile Valley, because that civilizing belt of the Nile is an extraordinary process that needs to be understood. It could not have been done by the culture that comes out of the Arabs. It could not have been done by the culture that comes out of Europeans. It could not have been done by the culture that comes out of Northern Asia, because that culture does not center the female principle in the universe. African cultures, cultures of the South, Native Americans, center the spiritual process of the female at the... No, I'm finished. No, what I wanted to do, we couldn't do, the technology broke down. What I wanted to say, you can't do because you're working on time. So I got to get prepared for Atlanta, and I got to do 2 funerals on Sunday. So I mean, I'm not going to come spend $1,000 to come to a conference organization that I birthed, that comes out of the organization we birthed before it, and then have people say, it is time. I'm an adult. You know, I'm an adult, and I don't appreciate the way this has been handled. So whatever I wanted to say, I can't say, I ain't gonna say, and I'll say it at another time. There's plenty of time for me to speak and say my piece. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Check, 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 check. Check, check, check. Yo, finger on the dial, don't turn that. Young homie changed nothing. You know you found it when you heard that. Real rap black, we came from it. Blacks were raised up, what little to not, but look to they pops to learn something, right? Others look to the block to earn something, pockets empty. $2 in coins, I started with it down to 50. Since I was born, I forewarned you, I was more than just another black boy in the city. Had plenty. Seemed so I leaned on words, seen dreams deferred with Langston Hughes pinning on the curb and tune like my radio. My radio, I had to play it low. Cost a pretty penny, but I made it though. Made it so flavorful, told haters no, we traded for nothing, man, I loved it. So I nicknamed it Black Boy Radio. 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 Yeah. Culture class too intelligent, they painted us as felons. But we were made in America, raised in America. Haircut, illmatic aesthetic, neither slanted part. Lining in the army jacket, hard, on guard. Sword sharp enough to split atoms. Well, I split hairs with atoms. Crew cuts, give them tax breaks. The State of the Union, we debate to make them take a second look. Cause there's crooks all around you. Ku Klux still exists, Black Panther exorcist. So aim high for that better shit. Well, I split hairs and atoms. E equals MC square shit. Einstein, the science of a scientist. Estevan, Oreo, Baltimore, Oreo, the verses. Lyrical photography, that purchase of a Polaroid is just what you need. Maintain the frame. And that mainframe, a frame within itself. L7, put that work in and put it on a shelf. They can search it, work worth about 1,000 words. Perfect. They gotta see it first anyway. Many say, don't touch that dial. This is Black Boy Radio. Yo. Don't touch that dial. This is Black Boy Radio. Yo. Don't touch that dial. This is Black Boy Radio. Yo. Don't touch that dial. This is Black Boy Radio. Yo. This is Black Boy Radio. Yo.
F.M. in Raleigh, North Carolina.
$7 was